Community in America is broken. A recent study indicates that for the average American, there's only 2 people that they can confide in for any meaningful conversation. And for the rest of us, we don't have anyone at all. Growing up in Michigan, cars were a big deal. As a matter of fact, as I was growing up, we used to do assemblies at school that just went over the history of the automobile. In the 1950s and 60s, Detroit was the place to be. It was the motor city in the age of the automobile. Cars were such a big deal to the city that they made an intentional choice to take out the trolley system so that for the average Joe, his only option was to own a car to get to work. Matter of fact, most families probably needed 2 cars. One for mom to take kids to school and one for dad to get into the city to work. They brought in the freeway system. And these freeways didn't go around these communities, they just cut right through them. And at the time, no one had any idea what the consequences of doing that would be. 60 years later, we have a man named Robert Putnam who did a study on the social fabric of America. And what he found was that for every 10 minutes of commute, we're 10% less likely to have meaningful relationships. The average commute for America today, it's 30 minutes each way. I mean, most of us, we don't even know our neighbors. I know it's really hard for us to believe that we're that disconnected, that we're that isolated from one another. Because when we look around the world, we've got more options for connectivity than we've ever had before. The average Facebook user has 314 friends and is connected to 80 community pages. But if that community was real, if it was authentic, if it was life-changing, would we have issues like depression and loneliness as such a big part of our life? They say by the year 2020, the second most common health issue around the world will be depression. We weren't built for isolation. We weren't meant to live lives disconnected from one another. In fact, we were created in the image of a God who exists in community. We were created for community. Community for us is a declaration of the overwhelming love of God. That Jesus Christ has reconciled us to the Father and He's reconciled us to one another. And what we get to do practically, we get to live life together, spurring one another on, caring for one another, and we get to join the mission of God. You see, real, authentic community, it's not about us, it's about God. The church should be the most compelling expression of community in our culture. It should stand in contrast to the counterfeit community that costs us nothing. But unfortunately, in most of our churches, we're more well known for awkward circles than we are for transformational community. And what we do is we feed the skepticism of the folks outside of the church that are hoping for something different, and we give them the same thing. A lot of times, God in His grace comes in and He strips away the things that keep us blind to how isolated we are, how disconnected we are from one another and from Him. And that's my prayer for our churches. My prayer is that God would strip away everything that is fake about our community. That God would take away everything that we use to prop up and make community look like it's life-giving, and He'd replace it with the only thing that really does give life, and that's the gospel. That we'd be inspired by the glory of our God, and that we'd be empowered by His grace.